Hello and welcome to the Physical Preparation Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Robertson, and today can best be described as a potluck episode. So the official title is going to be Confidence in Coaching, Continuing Education, and Business Optimization. But the reason this podcast came about is it's sort of like a Q&A, sort of like trending topics on like Twitter, X, or whatever we're calling it these days. But what's been interesting is I've had a ton of the same discussions lately. I've got mentees on our private calls. I've got, the independent contractors that are at IFAST, or we've had a couple observers in lately. We had a bunch of people in this past weekend for the Lee Taft seminar. But what's been interesting is I keep having the same questions come up time and time and time again. And I feel like that's kind of the universe's way of telling me, hey, dummy, you need to be talking more about this. So when the same questions keep coming up, I think this is just a great way using the podcast to amplify this message. And hopefully it's going to help people like yourself out. So I'm really excited about today's topic. I think we got 6 or 7 that we're going to cover. So we're going to take a quick break and then we will jump into this potluck/random episode. Okay, so let's start at the top here. And again, I've got kind of a sequence and order that I want to walk you through here. But at the top, let's talk about business optimization. Let's talk about scheduling, billing, and push press in my case, because they are not only the sponsor of the show, but they are what I'm using not only for IFAST basketball, but IFAST the gym, and now IFAST physical therapy. So let's go back to 2008. Bill Hartman and I decide we're going to open a gym, and I don't even remember like my facility planner 1.0. I don't remember what the software was. It was really bad. We quickly moved off that. We moved to a piece of software called Volo. Eventually, we used MindBody for a good chunk of time. But, the fact of the matter is we kind of bounced around for a while. And so I was looking for something better, especially as I started to build IFAST basketball and I started to build kind of my own brand within the gym. But, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. I wasn't looking to scale. So what I wanted at that point in time was super easy to use, both for myself and for my clients and athletes, and minimal work on my part, right? At least as far as the setup goes. So what I was doing for a long period of time, literally you could go into a Google Sheet. You could see my calendar for the week. You could see, hey, at 8, 9, 10, 11, you could go in and fill out your schedule. It was very simple. I would keep track in Excel, right? So you already see the issue here. I've got like 3 different platforms, but I'd use Google Sheets to let people sign up. At the end of the day or at the end of the training week, I would just go into Excel and mark how many sessions people had. And then at the end of the month, I would have to go in and I would have to bill them. So again, the goal at that point in time wasn't to scale. It wasn't to make IFAST basketball this big thing. It was really just to make things a little bit more convenient for my athletes, to cut down on some of the back and forth. Because the last thing I want to do is 9 o'clock at night. People are texting me, yo, Mike, can I move from 8 to 9? Mike, can you take me off 9? It just made life very simple. Now they can go on, they can look at the schedule, but it wasn't a very labor intensive process for me to get that set up. But as things went on last year, so 2024 moving into 2025, I did kind of my summer review, right? Or I did my off-season review of how things were going. And I was like, look, like it's working, right? But there were a couple pain points. I remember one day where a guy wanted to go on at 10. I'm not going to name the guy because if you came into the gym, you'd know who it was, LA. But literally there were already 3 or 4 people on the schedule. It was full. So then he just put Dakota/LA. So he put himself into the schedule. So it wasn't a huge deal. And we laugh about stuff like that. But it was like, okay, the scheduling was a little wonky and people could, accidentally delete somebody or put themselves on an hour where they shouldn't be. So there was that. The real headache for me was on the back end. And that was going in and having to bill people. It's like, okay, how many sessions did they do? Keeping tabs on that throughout the month. Then just the physical act of, okay, they did 20 sessions. Go into Excel, create the invoice. Okay, the invoice is done. Create a PDF. Okay, the PDF's done. Now send them the PDF. Okay, now I have to print that page and I got a physical copy here because I want to make sure that everybody I build actually pays. Well, and then you also have to come up with, well, okay, all these people paid, but these 3 still haven't paid. So they've got outstanding invoices. They're still training. It just led to a lot of headaches, right? So again, I know better, but I wasn't really trying to scale at that point in time. And so that's why I decided to move to push press, right? And why I knew I needed some sort of system to help me scale and build going forward. And I keep coming back to this idea that people crave simplicity, right? They don't want, fancy is cool, but what ultimately people want is they want a system where they can go in, they can book sessions easily, they can pay for sessions easily. It's just intuitive, it's user friendly. I know I'm the same way. Like if I want to get started with a company and it's 30 steps for me to get, an account created or to get a simple session booked, I'm not going to go with them, right? Unless they are elite service. If it's really complex, I'm not going to do it. So knowing that people crave simplicity, knowing that a lot of the pros that I work with want simplicity, they don't need more complexity in their life. That's why I kind of moved in this direction. So now everything is under one roof. And it's funny because I just had a mentee call where we dove into this, and it's like, look, I'm trying to make this as simple as possible. So literally I send them a document and it's step by step. Hey, here's where you go to download the app. Here's how you create an account. Here's how you buy a membership or you pay for your performance assessment. Literally, it's step by step, and it's so simple. Because people will always ask is, well, do people actually do that? Because I think sometimes we as business owners love chaos. We like complexity. We like being in the center or the forefront of our business versus, hey, man, I'm trying to make this as hands-off as possible. So now, literally, there's a step-by-step process. You know how to book, right? How to buy sessions. You can see very clearly when I have sessions, when I don't, who's coming into those sessions. It's so simple. It's so easy. And there's a lot of reasons beyond just setting up this app and switching to push press. The fact that I've, without trying, I pushed scale a little bit more and tried to add a few new clients into the stable this summer. But man, like training income is like 3x over, the last 2 to 3 months. Like not just a little bit, like we're seeing like a hockey stick. So it's really cool to see. But I've had this discussion a lot. So I just want to tell you, if you're a young trainer, a young coach, if you're trying to set up your own business, hey, early on, okay, maybe you just have to do whatever minimum viable product is. But if you get serious about this and you want to take stress off your shoulders, right? You don't want to have to worry about scheduling, billing, do you have to charge somebody for a late cancel? All of these things that we stress out about as trainers and coaches. If you want to get over and get past all of that, make sure you find a solution. Again, I love Push Press. So if you're interested in learning more about them, you can click on the link in the show notes. But find ways to make your life easier, right? Working with people all day, every day, writing programs, coaching and queuing clients. That's where we should be focusing our energy, not on all this back end stuff. Find ways to streamline and automate that. Next, this has been really interesting because I've gotten a lot of questions lately about privates in group training. So here's what I mean by that. If you run small group sessions, and everybody's got a different interpretation of what small group is. For me, it's always been like 2 to 4. Some people will say it's up to 8. Some people will say small group is 12 to 16. Doesn't matter what your interpretation of small group is. What matters is what happens when you only have one person in that session. That's what these people are asking. Like, if you could have up to 4 or 8 or even 12 in a session, what happens when you only have one? Okay, first off, I want to say something here, and I want to segue. First off, just recognize the fact that group training done right is hard. I don't care if you're doing 3, 4, 8, 12. If you're doing small group training at a high level where people are in different areas and you're buzzing around and you're trying to provide energy and coach those people, this is a really energy intensive thing. So on one hand, I'll tell you, if you ever get a private, enjoy it because that's a way easier hour. You get to dive in and be introspective. But what I always tell people is, look, we run group sessions because as trainers, it tends to be more profitable. And for our clients or our athletes, it tends to be more affordable, right? If it were any other way, we would all charge $150, $200 a session. We would do 101s. We would all make a lot of money and have fancy boats and houses and all that. But, when we get those privates, because I've had a couple here in recent memory, I want you to understand this. I want you to reframe this. And instead of thinking about, well, normally I make 200 an hour and now I'm only making 50 in an hour, or maybe I'm only making $20 in an hour. I want you to reframe this and think about, yeah, but this is an amazing opportunity to connect with the client or athlete or human being standing in front of me. And again, I've had this happen a couple of times in recent memory. 3 specific sessions stand out. One was an 8 a.m. here recently where, one of my guys, he's a very quiet, unassuming dude. He comes in, he does his work. There's days where, yeah, I'm coaching him and cueing him and talking to him a little bit, but there's days where he does the bulk of his workout and I don't have to coach or cue hardly anything, right? So while it's great as a coach to have these people that are hands off and they put their head down and they do the work, it's also great when I have those moments where let's really lock in on some things. And, we found some things with his program. I was like, oh, let's just tweak this one thing. He did it and then he went back to his step ups. He's like, oh my gosh, that feels great. I want to start doing that more regularly. We can talk about personal stuff. It's just great to have those connection points. That's one example. A second example was today. I had a guy in and we've worked together maybe 20 some sessions over the last couple years. He's a college guy moving into the professional ranks, but I've never really got to sit down with him one-on-one and connect and just learn more about him. And he's such an interesting guy. Obviously started at Butler, then went to a different school, got to play in an NCAA championship game. Dude, what was that experience like? What was it like playing there versus playing at Duke, where it feels like the fans are right on top of you and they're going crazy? So these are awesome opportunities. And I'll give you a third, because as you know, over the years, I've run these little speed camps for Kendall's soccer team. And even though she kind of phased out of them this year, I still kept the speed camp concept going because there was a contingent of girls that I felt like wanted and needed that. And so most of them, we'd have 5, 6, 7 girls in a session. And for one of them, I only had one girl. And I'll never forget this because, it took me back to my one-on-one private days a little bit. And I used to always joke around that the longest minute in your life is the 1 minute rest period where you're standing across from somebody that you have nothing in common with. And so, I'm hanging out with this 13-year-old girl and I'm just chipping away at her, right? I just keep asking questions. I'm like, hey, what are you into? What kind of food do you like? And over the course of this hour, eventually I start to figure out, oh man, we love to talk about food. What are your favorite foods? She loves mac and cheese. She loves grilled cheese sandwiches. She loves canes. So, it's just this awesome opportunity to connect. And I tell you what, if you reframe this and instead of thinking about, oh, I'm losing, $100, $150, $200 in this hour. No, think about this. If you really connect with that human being in that hour, that person will come back to you for months or years on end based on that one session, because you create such a strong bond and such a strong connection in that hour. So I'm not going to say you want a ton of these, but I will say when you have them, take advantage, coach the heck out of them, connect with them, and just enjoy that time that you get, even if it is a one-on-one private session with a group training client. Okay. So privates and group training, they happen. Take advantage, use them, make the most of them. Number 3, let's talk about confidence in coaching. And this has been interesting because I mentioned this up top, but we've had a couple observers in the last couple of weeks. Guys that I knew, guys that I know are high-level trainers and coaches. So shout out to Brody and Tate for coming in. But here's my beef. I feel like social media is just a cancer for real coaches, because people that are trying to do this at a high level, people that are working at a high level, when I get on IG, there's a lot of times where I feel like, dude, I don't know anything. Like, should I be doing that? Should I be incorporating that in my program? Because it just constantly drives this FOMO mentality, right? It constantly makes us question ourselves. Are we doing enough? Should we be adding more stuff in? Should we be taking stuff out? Like, instead, I want to give you an alternative. And I think this is something we have to start doing more of. If you're a serious coach, you have to get off social media. So not saying you never look at it, but get off IG, get off TikTok, get off YouTube, and go to somebody else's gym and watch them coach, right? Like, this is one of my favorite pieces, whether I go to Andy's gym, I go to Luca's gym, whatever place I travel to, I'd love to go to the gym first. I just like to see how they operate. Steve Calarco is another one when I went to his gym. I love seeing other great coaches work. And so when people come into my facility, here's what they see. Because regardless of your expectation of me or what standard you want to hold me to, I'm the first to tell you I'm not perfect, right? I don't have one single client or athlete that moves perfect. So my athletes are going to make mistakes. More importantly, I'm not perfect, so I'm going to make mistakes. As their coach, you're going to see me fail in real time. Maybe it's the exercise I chose. I'm having a flashback to a girl I was coaching a couple weeks ago. I mean, this girl plays pro basketball, and I couldn't get her to do a good step up, right? So I tried a bunch of different cues, swing and a miss, swing and a miss, swing and a miss. It was bad. And so eventually it's like, hey, let's go over here. We put her on the what's that strap, gave her a step up, and immediately, instead of giving her 20 cues, we give her the feedback, that kinesthetic awareness of having the strap, getting her lined up, and immediately it fixed the problem. So I just think this is so important, guys. It's so easy to get caught up in what's going on social media, to have that FOMO mentality, to think you're doing everything wrong. What I would tell you is this: don't obsess over perfect or what the internet tells you in this moment in time is the most important thing. What you need to do is find ways, create opportunities to go watch other people coach so that you can understand what really matters. And I think most of the time when you do that, it grows your own confidence, right? When I go to other places, if I go watch Andy and Tate and his crew coach, if I go watch Luca and his team coach, if I watch Steve Calarco, I'm like, damn, these guys are doing it at a high level. They're seeing the same things and they're coaching the same things that I would. And I think that's what's most important, because it's really easy in social to get caught up in the minutia, to get caught up in the weeds. And all of a sudden we're arguing about the 1% that nobody really cares about or that doesn't really matter, when we should be focusing on the 99% that we can all agree is the most impactful stuff to spend our time and energy on. Okay, so that's number 3, confidence in coaching. Number 4, I just have written down here, Lee Taft, 1% better. So as you guys know, we had the honor and pleasure of having Lee Taft come into our gym this past weekend. And let's just be real, Lee's the GOAT. If you want multi-directional speed, if you want somebody that's going to help you coach speed more effectively, or to teach your athletes how to move more efficiently and more effectively, Lee's the guy. And I can tell you unequivocally, other than Bill, who I've spent the last 20 years hanging out with at seminars, in the PT room, on the gym floor, at random restaurants and, destinations when we traveled together. Other than Bill and potentially Joel, Lee is absolutely the person I've spent the most time learning from. And so what's interesting is then I got a lot of questions. People are like, yo, like, you've got all this guy's products, you've attended his seminars, you brought him into like every seminar you've ever done, like almost every Midwest performance enhancement seminar or physical prep summit that we've had, Lee has talked. And most years he got an hour, but another year we brought him in for the whole second day. He was our keynote speaker. So why do I bring him in? Well, a couple of reasons. Number one, I want to learn from people that are always learning. So one of the constants, whether it is a Lee Taft, a Bill Hartman, a Joel Jameson, an Eric Cressy, people that strive to be at the top of this industry, they are always learning. They're always evolving their thought process. They're always trying to make what they do a little bit better. And so that's why I had this 1% better idea. Look, at some point you have a philosophy, right? It's not about overhauling your philosophy or changing everything you do. It's about getting 1% better. And Lee exudes that. That is who he is. So he's always learning. Number two, you get those up-to-date viewpoints and thoughts. And this is one of the things that always tends to kind of fall through the cracks. You could go buy my complete coach cert, right? You could buy that right now and get a really strong understanding as to my assessment process, how I write programs, how I coach in Q. But the further you get away from any project, right, the less, I don't want to say it's less relevant, but there's nuance that you tend to lose. So yeah, I would still say if you are starting out as a trainer or coach, if you want to go buy the complete coach cert, absolutely, it's going to make you a better coach. You're going to have my system plug and play, but there's an evolution and there's nuance and there's little changes that happen along the way. So when you get to go watch somebody live, whether it's going to their gym and watching them coach or attending a seminar or workshop, you get these up-to-date viewpoints and thoughts. And so Lee is somebody where, hey, if you're changing even 1% per year, I want to know what that is. I want to know how you're changing, how you're evolving, and why you're doing those things. What about your thought process, your philosophy has changed so that you do this now versus what you did in the past? Like, that's really impactful for me. And then the third piece, and again, this is all about being in the room live, is you get those movement corrections and you get that feedback in real time. So when I first created the Complete Coach Cert, one of the biggest, I don't want to say beefs, but one of the biggest pieces of feedback I got was, hey, this is cool. And there were like 130 some exercise demos, and I would give coaching cues and, different viewpoints of, looking at a squat from the side, back, whatever. One of the biggest pieces of feedback I got from people that watched it was, hey, this is great, but your guy moves perfect. What happens when I'm training this client and their knees are caving in or their back is rounding? And I was like, oh, that's a great point. That's a great point. And so that's why after the cert, I actually did a Complete Coach workshop, which also is filmed and you get included now with the Complete Coach cert. But I brought 5 or 6 different coaches in. I taught them the model. And then what I did from there is I took them on the floor and coached them. So instead of just having one body shape and one body type, now I've got 5 or 6 different people and they all move a little bit different. So you can see me coach and cue in real time. You can see me give that feedback because there's this dynamic element of coaching. It's not like you just put something in. It's not a robot, right? You give it a prompt and it immediately knows what to do. No, like these are human beings. So sometimes the first cue works and boom, you get the change that you want. But other times, hey man, you got to go 3, 4, 5 cues deep. And then all of a sudden they're like, oh yeah, I get what you were saying now. Or now I'm able to reproduce the movement model that you were looking for. Okay. So this is something I want you to think about when you attend a seminar, when you go to a workshop, when you hang out at somebody's gym. The goal isn't necessarily to blow up your entire coaching philosophy and start over, right? Especially if you've been doing this for a while, please don't do that. Because if you've been doing this more than 10, 15, 20 years, chances are you've had a lot of success, right? Continue on that path, but use these opportunities to get 1% better, to keep tightening those screws. Because ultimately, that's what's going to lead to impactful change for you. You've had success. Now keep getting a little bit better each and every day because that's what's going to take you to the next level. Next, interns, phones, and being present. This is going to be fun. So let me just start by saying this. I would have told you years ago that Sandy was the final intern, like the last hurrah. She's an amazing human being, client, friend / mentor. I think that works both ways. But I honestly would have thought she was the last. And I never thought I'd say this, but this summer has led me to kind of think like maybe I would take an intern again in the future, just for the summer. I ain't trying to take somebody year round, but maybe I would take an intern in the future. If nothing else, to help me continue to refine the process that I'm using with my basketball players, just to help me facilitate flow. If it's not an intern, maybe I just hire an assistant to help me set up and tear stuff down, and help the sessions flow a little bit faster, because the limiting factor right now for me is just setting stuff up, tearing stuff down, getting athletes ready for their next exercise. But it's made me start thinking about, okay, if I really got serious about this, what would need to happen? Like, what boxes would these people need to check? You got to remember too, this is not like my first foray into having interns. We had interns for the first 14 years of IFAST being in existence. But with observers being in our gym, and our observers have been great because they were professionals. But I had a couple, I would just say more like kids or students come in over the last year and a half, 2 years. And it made a couple things really, how do I want to describe this? It brought a few things into focus that would really move the needle for me, either in a good or bad way. So here are those criteria. Number 1, if you want to be an intern, if you want to come to IFAST and observe, don't be on your phone. And I would think this is just like entry level, right? But I think we're in a different day and age, right? Because our last round of interns was probably 4 years ago now, where we had multiple interns. And even they were older, right? When you think about a G or a Monica, they were just older, more mature. But number one, if you want to be an intern somewhere, please don't be on your phone. And if you would want to ever come intern for me, you better take your phone, put it in do not disturb, and put it in the back before you go on the floor. Because, hey, man, we might only work 4 to 5 hour shifts, but while we're out there, we're working. I don't want you on your phone, texting your buddy, your boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever. You need to be locked in. You need to be present and in the moment. So that would be one, because a couple of the students that we've had in there, dude, every 2 seconds I'm coaching, they're like pulling their phone out, looking at something. Like, what could possibly be more important than what we're doing right now? So that would be number one. Don't be on your phone. Number two, this is comical because it actually happened. But one of our coaches or one of our independent contractors came to me and just said, hey, I know a kid that needs an internship for the summer. Okay. Now, the timing of this is really relevant because when we were running an internship program, if you wanted a summer internship, you had to apply by March 1st. That gave us time to go through the interview process, vet everybody, see who was good. And then on the back end, that gives you time to set things up and make sure you can actually be at IFAST first or second week in May. So the timing of this was critical and relevant because this person was asking for a summer internship on May 10th. At which point I immediately told our coach, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Like, there's no forethought there. That person is not really interested in working at IFAST. They just want a summer internship to tick a box. Okay. So don't ask last minute for an internship. And so that means these next two are really important. Know something about IFAST. This is just a good general rule. If I apply for a job somewhere, I want to know about the place where I'm going to work. What's their philosophy? What are their hours? What's their mission statement? What's their culture? These are things that I think make sense and that I want to know about. So don't come to me wanting an internship and not know anything about IFAST or me, because I am not conceited. I'm not full of myself. I'm definitely not arrogant, but we've done things, right? Like Bill and I have done things. I've got 25 years of information and street cred out there. So you should know something about me. You should know something about the gym. You should know something about Bill Hartman because, he's kind of a smart guy. He's got things to offer the fitness industry. But let's go beyond that, right? So beyond knowing stuff about me and the gym and kind of our culture and the way we look at things, I want to know some things about you. Like, you better be able to tell me, who do you follow, right? And this is going to tell me a lot about you as a trainer, as a coach, what your philosophy is, whether you have one or not. I want to know, who are you following, right? Do you just want like clickbait, hot takes, 25 tips to unlock your hips? Do you want that kind of stuff? Or do you want things that are a little bit more relevant, that are a little bit more cemented, right? Or a little bit better rooted in real world training versus, again, the hot takes and the clickbait. Now, that's not a deal breaker because sometimes you mean well, you have the best of intentions, you just haven't been put on the right path. So I can help with that, right? But show me that you are at least following people, right? And that you're interested in continuing your own education. And then the final piece I'll say here is, you better be able to tell me how you're going to make IFAST better. Because the analogy that I've always used, and it's not always popular because it's probably a little bit harsh, but generally the first half of the internship, you are a liability, right? Like if you're an intern, like you are taking up a lot of time, right? You don't know where to be. Generally interns are awkward at the start. So, you're like interjecting yourself at the wrong time in a conversation. You don't really know how to get things set up. You're asking questions at weird times. So I'm educating you. I'm taking extra time outside of sessions to educate you and help you understand how to do things. It's a lot of work. And so really, it's not till the back half of the internship where somebody's valuable, right? And they're moving the needle in a positive way for the business. So you got to bring other things to the table, right? Like maybe you just have an amazing personality. You've got a ton of energy. Maybe you played, a college level sport. And so you've got certain level of street cred there. And you've got shared experiences that, you and the athletes can bond over. But I think this is really important, guys. One, if I took an intern, it would be interesting. But number two, if you're going to be an intern, you better have the skills to pay the bills, right? And just understand, there's some criteria here. Don't come to me in May wanting a summer internship. Don't be on your phone all the time. Show me who you are. Show me what you're all about. Show me that you're serious about getting better. Because at this point, it's the vetting process that I have with my athletes. I don't coach anybody and everybody, and I don't think of myself as exclusive, but the real limiter here is, are you serious about getting better? Do you have a path or a vision for yourself? And so that's the same way, in the same criteria I'm going to use for an intern, right? If you want to come and work at iFast, that's amazing. And that's great. What's your vision for yourself? Where do you see yourself going in the fitness industry? And so I don't know. I'm very, very wishy-washy on this. And I'm not going to tell you definitively yes or no. But if you're somebody that's listening to this, maybe you're interested, hey, hit me up. Or if you're listening to this and you know somebody that might be a great fit and that is, serious about becoming a great young coach and pushing this industry forward in, the years and decades to come, then definitely connect with me, because it's not going to happen this year, but starting early 2026, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to put some feelers out there. So interesting times. And then last but not least, let's talk about this masterclass, because yesterday I ran my second masterclass of 2025. The first one was called Everyday Athlete. It was really for people over 40 plus that want to be more athletic, right? They want to do some speed training, some power training. Obviously, they want to stay strong. They want some conditioning, but more than just, being in the weight room and pushing heavy weights. Man, they're fun, but bro, they are a lot of work. It's a lot of work by the time you create the marketing materials. This last one I ran ads to. So shout out to Joel and Ariel for helping me out with that. They are savages with the whole Facebook, Instagram marketing game. But, you got to create a sales page for it, automated emails. I got to create the content. I got to rehearse the content. I'm creating extra resources on the back end and compiling all of those. In this case, I actually created programs for both of these too. So, hey, if you want to be strong and you're over 40, here's a program. If you want to be an everyday athlete and you're over 40, but want to get back to training speed, power, got a program for that. But the reason I do these, one, it's fun. But two, I'm I'm being more honest with myself, right? Because I think if you go back and you went at or either read or listened to my annual reviews the last couple years, I know I've said every year, like, oh, I want to write more. Like, I love writing articles, and I do. I absolutely love sitting down and hashing out an article. But I'm also just more realistic right now. Like, especially this time of year, I can't pull it off. And I'll be honest, I'm not going to do one of these in the middle of next year. Like, there's just so much going on with the basketball stuff, with the gym stuff, with the kids being home and sports and everything else. I'm not going to put anything in the middle of next year other than my off-season basketball training. Like, that's it. But I think I'm just more realistic now, in that, yeah, I'd love to write articles every month, but it's just not happening. So instead, this is a great kind of next best option. And I think for a lot of people, they'd much rather sit down for an hour and listen to me give a talk and have videos, and it's more interactive and dynamic. They'd much rather have that than have me just write an article that they can kind of consume. So the thing that I love about these, and again, whether it's an article, a podcast, a video, a masterclass, is it forces me to bring all my thoughts together on a topic, and then makes me organize it, streamline it, and ultimately it makes me make it cohesive to other trainers, coaches, or end users. So I love them because it helps a lot of people. It helps me. I think selfishly, it helps me kind of organize and, streamline these thoughts. But on the back end, it helps people like you, hopefully, hey, I want to continue to lift weights for as long as possible. Hey, here are some things that I would be doing if I were you. So if you have attended the master classes, first off, shout out, love and appreciate you. Thank you for doing that. But I'm also going to offer 2 more this year. So September 17th, we're going to talk about unlocking mobility. And no, it's not going to be 25 exercises to unlock your hips. There probably will be some very targeted and specific mobility drills in there, but we're going to talk more holistically, right? Like, why do we lose mobility? What are some of the big drivers of restriction in our mobility? How do we address that? And then on the back end, then what are some, really practical or applied tips that you can use to get more mobility? So that's September 17th. And then December 22nd, we are going to be talking about training for the seasons of life. And I've done my RTS annual program in the past. This is kind of going to be an offshoot of that. It's going to be the philosophy behind that. Why do I set up programs in like quarters? So like a first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter with these rotating emphases, right? So why do I do like a mobility, movement quality, aerobic development, followed by a body comp phase, followed by an athletic phase, followed by a strength phase? Like, why do I set it up like that? How is that valuable? Especially, if you're over 40, how does that benefit you in the long haul to start touching all these bases? And some of it is probably self-explanatory, but I think there is a method to that madness as well. So if you enjoyed the first ones, great. Make sure you check those out. If you haven't checked one out before, again, September 17th, December 22nd, mark those on your calendars now because, again, they're free. I'd like to think they're super valuable. And yeah, I mean, I would like to hope that it's going to move the needle for you. So, obviously these programs have been geared towards populations 40 plus. So if that sounds like you or you're trending in that direction, maybe faster than you'd like, and you want a really good program, in the show notes here, I'll make sure I put links to my Everyday Athlete and Strong for Light programs because, man, you can train with me privately. And I've got some amazing online clients, some that I've worked with for, one guy I've worked with Mark for close to 20 years now. It's pretty cool to think about it like that. So going through 2 decades of training with somebody, you learn a lot about their body and what they can tolerate, but not everybody wants or needs private one-on-one online coaching. So if you want just a really great program that you can follow, it's like a fraction of the price, then definitely check out the Everyday Athlete and Strong for Life programs. I'll put the links to those in the show notes. But my friend, really, that does it for today. Like I said, a little bit of potluck, but I would like to think sometimes these like fast action, I don't want to say ADD, but it is a little bit ADD type episodes do really well because there's something in here for everybody, right? If you're a business owner and you need to optimize your business, there's something for you. If you're a coach and you're struggling with your confidence, or, you got the social media FOMO and you're not sure about what you're doing, there's something in there for you. Or, hey man, you just want to get a little bit better at what you do, then again, I hope there was something in here for you. I've done almost 500 of these now, and I'm getting closer to that elusive number 500 every week. But I want to take a moment and just sincerely thank you guys for being here, whether you were here from episode number 1 or this is your first one. Really doesn't matter to me. I truly love and appreciate you. I love doing this show, and I'm committed to making the fitness industry, strength and conditioning, a better place, a more inclusive place, and a place where we're all invested in our own growth and helping our clients and athletes get a little bit better every day. So as always, my friend, thank you so much for your support. Love and appreciate you. And we'll be back next week with our next episode. Take care.